All right, guys, welcome to our content creator panel about monetization. So this is a bonus meeting that we decided to have because Jaffer asked to, just kind of have a chat about monetization and how it works for content creators, whether you're part-time or full-time. So I thought we would kind of make a meeting out of it, answer some questions, and post it up on the YouTube to help some of you guys who have been struggling with content creation or just looking to pick up a few new tricks. Now, I'm by no means an expert, so I'm hoping that cumulatively we'll be able to share some experiences and talk about what has been working for us individually. Just because, like I said, I am certainly not the best at it. I'm by no means a huge creator, so hopefully you guys will have some input on some of these things as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and start right with you, Jaffer, because this is something that you asked for. So I'm assuming you have some specific questions in mind.
Mhm. So for somebody that is wanting to l- delve more into doing content creation to have more of an income from it to do as a living, uh, what is I can't think of the correct way to ask it. Like the best way to go about looking into about sponsors and also what you should be looking for, how to value yourself
Okay, yeah.
as.
So, like putting your own number on sponsors and sponsored streams is really tough, and that's something that a lot of, especially the degens, come to me and say. One of the first forms you have to fill out when you join Degenerate Gaming is: Are you willing to do gamed content, game sponsored content? Are you willing to do product placement special content? If so, what is your minimum amount on those? And I'll tell you, like 90% of the creators that come onto the team, even the larger ones, say, I don't know what like that would normally be. And that's perfectly normal. For me personally, I try to gauge that based on a couple of factors. One, how much I think the sponsor has to pay, and also how badly I want the job. Like, if it's a job that I think would be good for my content, that my viewers would really like, I might underbid myself just because I actually really want the job. And I think it will go hand in hand if then the community is still enjoying the content, so I'm still making money from like subscriptions and stuff, versus something like a Raid Shadow Legends sponsorship, which is literally just kind of throwing content time down the trash, down, just, okay, I'm getting paid by Raid and that's kind of it. So then I would want a much higher amount to make that worth my time. Because it is putting, a strain on your community. You only have so many of those hours available to you. That you can actually use. Like, your community's like, yeah, you have to do your Raid's Shadow Legend sponsorship, but I can't do one every day, if that makes sense. Um, so that's the kind of the two major factors that I look into when deciding how much my time is worth. And it's just kind of about feeling things out. Sometimes I try to ask them to put in a bid, or make an offer and then go from there. I also kind of look at each item like a sponsored tweet or sponsored live stream content, and think of how much strain that's going to put on the community. Like, if I every day do a tweet that spams some sort of advertisement, like, my pull kind of goes down, right? Like, how impactful I am significantly drops, which will ultimately lower uh, what I get to do. So, I mean, that's kind of my rate. The only thing I would say is, like, talk to larger creators than yourself and ask them what they think you should be doing, because they've been at your exact spot, right? And they're like, oh, when I was at that size, I severely underbid myself versus whatever. Or they'll be able to tell you what they were getting comparable to those things. Or they've even worked with companies in the past that are very similar. I did a sponsorship for Cubamajigs. It's like a little cardamajigs company. And yeah, I messaged Prof and was like, hey, I don't know what to ask for. And he had worked with them in the past, so he gave me some good tips and I got the job. Is that the ballpark you were looking for?
Yeah, that helps give somewhat like a idea of what to look into for when it comes to that.
It's definitely not an easy thing. Like, evaluating your own time and your own content is super tough. And it's really hard to say how much is my viewer base worth to a sponsor. And also, like, they will try to underbid you for sure because they're thinking like, oh, they get exposure, they're going to be doing this anyway, so $5 is enough. But like, it really isn't, because a lot of things do impact your community and your time. And part of the way I kind of make sure that that doesn't hurt me too much is that I really only take product or games that I truly enjoy, that I don't think are bad. I don't sell products for that reason. I want my community to,
Hmm.
when I recommend a thing, actually think I really do. And I try to be very open and honest about those things with my community as well.
Okay. One of the questions I was going to ask actually was just asked in chat as well. Well, variation of it. So, like, when is the best time for somebody to reach out to companies to ask for a sponsorship or to work with them?
So there really is no best time, I don't think. I mean, it's going to be dependent upon the company, I suppose. Like if you see a company's coming out with a new game or a new product, then that's probably a good time to ask or pitch them an idea. Be like, hey, I would like to promote X because it's, you know, your new product and you're probably going to be more likely to be on board if that's the case. But for the most part, I mean, gotta shoot your shot. Like just, I would spend a ton of emails and then uh, cast a bunch of lines and see who bites.
Okay.
Um,
So I do have more questions that are
sure.
about monetization, but not related to sponsorship stuff. But since we're on the sponsorship topic, I
Mhm.
see in I thought there was some questions that are asked in Discord about that.
Yeah, keep
Um,
it going. I'm trying to like read them as I go too, but like I'm having a little trouble
mhm,
like formulating the actual question in the text. So yeah, if you
mhm.
see something, go ahead. Actually, Phoenix, I don't know if you're interested, but you might be a perfect person. Would you mind like maybe fielding chat questions to us like during the like kind of semi dead time? If you're reading them and you can kind of like read them to us, because I have trouble keeping up and also speaking.
So there's a question in chat. Adamant J, does advertisement count? Like how slash where you advertise increase viewership? Where are you just starting YouTube content, for example? When you're just starting YouTube content?
Oh, okay. So I was trying to make sense of that question, but I didn't quite get there. But I think what now that you read it out loud, I think it's asking about advertising for themselves, like for their own personal growth. Um, I mean, I don't know this firsthand, but I've heard TikTok is the best place to grow. It's the biggest platform, and content creators are definitely growing the quickest on TikTok. Now, I'm not.
I want to make
Go ahead.
I want to make a comment on that. For for any like general content creation, I'd agree with that. For Magic the Gathering content, no, I don't agree with that. So if you take, for example, um, just for example, somebody that's a EDH content creator and they go on TikTok, they're going to do super well. You take somebody like me, I only like playing constructed, standard, or like other 60 card formats. That kind of content and advertising for that does not do well on things like TikTok. So it's,
Well, you said magic at first, and then you made a distinction between your type of magic and EDH doing
I'm sorry,
well.
yes.
Now, I don't know if that's necessarily true. I think that like creators can grow on different platforms. Now, I don't do TikTok because I'm not particularly funny. Whereas I see there are creators who literally just TikTok is more about the short clip, right? It's 20, 30 seconds,
Hmm.
minute tops. So you have to have something valuable to say or do in that 30 seconds. And
Hmm.
I don't mean this negatively, Jaffer, but that might just not be your platform because you
Hmm.
aren't necessarily the um, flamboyant, over the top content creator. Where I see people like MTG Girl and Veggie do very well on those platforms because not every
Yes.
platform is going to cater to every type of creator. And I think you just might be more like me, and that is not a thing that you and I can really like excel in.
Hmm.
Again, that's not a knock. It's just like I'm
Yeah, no,
not very
I
entertaining
understand.
in a 30-second clip.
No, I understand. I'm not either. Like, if I ever do something like a 30-second clip, it's like I tried to do some informational instead of trying to be funny. And it's kind of hard at the same time.
I don't know if that's why people go on TikTok. Like, I don't think anybody's like, let's go learn something about magic on TikTok. I mean, I feel like they're more likely to come to Twitch or YouTube for that sort of content.
It's a good time waster.
Yeah, exactly. You go to TikTok because you want to be entertained. So if you would like to grow as a creator, making a few of those short entertaining clips is going to be probably your best way to get new exposure to your other platforms. Not for everybody. I'm not going to do it. That's way too much pressure.
Yeah. So I guess going into like a different question. Oh, well, Power Dragon's actually saying some things.
Power Dragon, you're welcome to come into the voice chat as well if you'd like to pop into the community team thing.
Did you get EK's question in the Discord?
I just started scrolling down to it. Feel free to fire off some of the pieces because I think there's multiple questions in there.
What monetization do you see a lot? Do you see as the best ROI?
So, I mean, this is actually a question we get a ton as content creators. In fact, I think I got it today, actually, where someone was saying, like, how is the best way, like, what's the best way for me to support a creator? What is a creator's preference? And so my answer to that, and I think is healthier for your community, is whatever suits you. You know, if you want to be able to put it on your credit card, you want to be able to do X. But the most important thing for me, and this is why we have, as creators, a wide range of tools of ways to monetize, is what perks interest you. Because if you are happier and you're having more fun, if you're interacting in the community in the way that you like, then that's going to create a better quality content experience for you. So if you really love spamming emotes and you're very talkative in the chat, great. You're going to get way more out of having a Twitch sub than a Patreon sub, right? So I would rather take less of the cut there if the viewer is having more fun. I will say cash donations and Patreon are probably the two best conversion rate for a content creator. Also, bits are pretty decent if you buy them in bulk because you guys pay the fees up front and then the creator gets the full amount. Each bit is 1 penny. Nothing is taken out except for taxes at the end of the year. Subs are probably one of the worst because they take between 50 and 70% depending on your level of content creation. You know, 95% of creators get 50% of the subs. And a few select creators get 70-30 splits. What else is there? You could do like Amazon wishlist stuff. That's like technically 100% because they would have had to buy it themselves and they don't have to pay taxes. So that's kind of a nice little bonus as well if you think it's something they will actually enjoy.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said there about how much you're spending on each platform as a creator as well. Like, because I'm obviously kind of across the board with all my stuff, and there's definitely a correlation to how much you're engaging with which audience and how much you're building that community to where they're going to support you and spend money or not, right? Because you can also do stuff on Patreon. You know, that's a way you can get people to reach out to you. Like YouTube recently introduced, I guess, what they call members, which is basically people subscribing to your channel. But you can also set the value there. So you can do as little as like 99 cents. And that's a thing for some people to do. So it kind of just depends on where your reach is, kind of where you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck, too. I mean, even on Facebook Gaming right now, they've basically dedicated through next year that they're not taking any money out of the stuff that goes to creators. Though I don't think that's going to last more than next year. I think it's mostly their way to try to like build up their platform a little bit. So it's really going to be different, kind of where you're focusing your efforts. And you know, just like other things you talked about too, there's also still like affiliate deals and whatnot as well. And those all pay different amounts. So it kind of just depends on what you're building up for yourself.
Definitely. It makes sense. So the question is like, I think the initial question was what as a creator has the best value for us, which, you know, like I said, is just kind of cash donations and Patreon, but then you can kind of mix it up to see like where you can best serve your community through those things. And sometimes that's through Twitch subs because it's very interactive. They can vote, they can bet, they can song request, whatever the case may be. And I think it's just really important to use all of those tools. If Patreon is the best conversion rate, I don't think you should only do Patreon because that's not going to appeal to as many people. and also just kind of makes the content a little less interactable. We
I
do have
agree totally.
oh, sorry.
I, I think one of the things that a lot of people do is they do get tied to a single platform. And more often than not, you need to be active on at least two, whether that's TikTok, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, whatever it is, Twitter. You have to have your reach out there to help build your audiences. Because I always tell people, like, you don't know who the other people know, right? And every point of contact you have helps build that and helps build that revenue over a long period of time.
Yeah, so you're talking more about personal and community growth, which will ultimately result in more income. But I think that the question was a little bit more about the specific types of
Gotcha.
ways, not the content, but the ways you get the income. So whether that's Patreon or cash donations or subs. So do you think you have a preference on like what, if one person was willing to give you $10 on any platform, what platform would you want that to be on?
I mean, technically, I would say for the next year, Facebook gaming, just because I'm getting the whole dollar. But realistically, right now, honestly, the percentages are pretty close on a lot of them. I was just thinking, like, actually, I guess a sub is probably the worst on
Definitely.
on Twitch as far as percentage that comes out. But everything else feels very close. It's going to be like 20 to 30% on most platforms. So whether that's, you know, some form of donation going through a system or like I said, a membership on YouTube, like it's going to be very similar
Well,
at that point. Just subs
Patreon
are
and
probably
cash
the worst for
donations
me.
are both under 5%.
Well, that's great. Then
Yeah.
yeah, definitely that way then.
Like PayPal takes a percentage of your cash donation. It's like 25 cents for each transaction and then up to 5%, maximum $5 or something like that for content creators. Like it's pretty low.
Yeah.
And then for Patreon, they take like a flat fee as well. That's a similar percentage. And so those are definitely the ways that are going to be more beneficial for the content creator. But again, each content creator, it's really important that you're using the tools at your disposal with each of these platforms to make sure that your viewer base or community is getting the most out of them, right? Whether you're offering special perks or emotes, things like that. Taking the care to support the community is going to make them want to help with the community growth in general. Like the reason I get to do this is because of X, right? Real
I
quick,
agree.
we did have another question here that's been asked a couple of times. Do you cold call sponsors or advertisers, or do they reach out to you? Honestly, it's a little bit of both. It depends on. Power Dragon will be a great addition for this question specifically. Kind of I would say the random companies, the off-branch games, things like that, they reach out to me because I'm not necessarily actively looking for them. However, when it comes to things like card sponsors, sleeve sponsors, things that are within my realm, then I actually reach out to them typically. Or I ask another content creator and I'm like, hey, who do you have? Can you put in a good word for me? So on and so forth. And then we use those sort of networks, and that's always very helpful. Power Dragon?
I want to jump in real quick. Sorry, Power Dragon.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
EK has another question that goes with this in the conglomerate of questions is when do you find it best to flip the switch to actively start seeking paid opportunities or pushing for monetized things?
Okay. For me, I think it's understanding. I don't. Okay, first off, I'll say I don't think there's like a terrible time to start reaching out. However, I do think there is a point where you have to be able to present yourself as having value. Now, because I'm a big believer in go ahead and shoot your shot, right? But one of the things I can say in my experience that I've heard this from multiple people now, that when I've reached out, I've had all my ducks in a row, right? I've said, okay, this is what my reach, this is how often I post things, this is what my schedule looks like. I can provide these things. I even put like, this is what I'm hoping for in a partner or, any brand deals. This is what I'm hoping to get out of it, other than just the monetary benefit. Like if it's a long-term thing, like, hey, maybe I can get you to share some of my stuff and help build my reach or whatever it is. And multiple times I've had people say, well, we never get this level of information from anybody.
So I do want to like just cut you off a little bit because we are going to actually dip a little bit deeper into how best to promote yourself in these situations, the type of material that sponsors are actually looking for, sort of like a build your resume kind of thing here in just a little bit. So I just didn't want to like have you waste too much of your time going over something we're going to talk about, and I'll probably ask you a ton of questions for later as well.
Yeah, and I'm kind of with you. I think it's a little bit of both as far as people reaching out or who you're reaching out to. But one of the things I tell people too is don't be afraid to reach out to people outside of like your normal sphere, because there's always people looking to promote their products a bunch of different ways.
That's definitely true. And now that I've started my own team, this is something that I'm working with even more. Like I was always kind of a go-getter when it came to, sponsors and branding and esports teams. Like I've reached out to most of the esports teams that I've been on, and I've gotten myself onto those teams because that's what you need to do to make it as a content creator. It's super hard. And it's not like, well, if I just stream this game, people will come to me. That's not always the case. And sometimes you have to make yourself visible. Phoenix, was there another question in that chunk there we can touch on before moving on?
When asking up, how do you make yourself stand out as a growing creator versus a large creator, which probably will go into the building your resume thing?
Yes, we will touch on that a little bit more because that's going to be kind of a deep topic. Should a general rate sheet be a thing for new creators to understand a ballpark? Yeah, I think a rate sheet is good, and that's something I've been asked for a lot. Now, I don't have one. I kind of make one on a case-by-case basis, which is a thing that I discussed a little bit in the previous subject on how much money do I think this company or sponsor have versus how much work am I putting in, also versus how much do I actually want this job. Now, it feels a little weird to say like I do undercut myself if it's a job I actively want, but think about it this way, like if it's something that goes hand in hand with your content, it's actually not putting any pressure or strain on your community for sponsored content, because you really do only have so much advertising space before you kind of light your career on fire, basically. Sort of like how Magic keeps cranking out product. We keep thinking we're going to hit a wall, but like they haven't yet. But eventually, if you do so many Raid Shadow Legends sponsorships, your viewers will go away. Like they will tolerate X number of these things because they know you need to feed your dog fancy treats. But there is definitely a ceiling for that.
Yeah, I don't think I actually have. I always say, but I don't really have a rate sheet. But when anybody's asked, I magically have a rate sheet.
Yep.
And and it's mostly like you said. I agree. Like it's kind of a case by case thing. And as I've grown my content, I have sponsors or people I've worked with in the beginning that I was just like, yeah, sure, I'll take like $50 for these efforts, or I'll take $100 for these efforts, or whatever. But then I have somebody else come along and is like, hey, we'd like to work with you, whatever. So then I go back to my initial people and been like, hey, this other opportunity came up and they're kind of in the same space. Like, how do you feel about this? Whatever. And okay, my rate has gone up now because now I have people competing. So it's like, okay, well, now I can get more from a sponsor. And that just comes with time. I wish there was a way to say like, well, you have this many views or this many followers, it's worth this much money. And like, there's some loose stuff out there if you search around on the internet, but they're wildly different in execution, person to person, because you having a lot of subs on Twitch or on YouTube or whatever may not equate to the same number of views, or you might do so many live streams versus somebody else with the same number of followers or subscribers, and that kind of changes things too. So you really have to do it kind of just based on, kind of like what Nerd Girl was saying. How badly do you want the job? How much time are you going to put into it? Is it taking up space for something else you might eventually want? Because I'm sure some of you are going to have your like dream goal partners to work with or businesses to work with. Like, okay, well, if you establish this relationship, you're taking that other one off the table. Like
certainly
that's kind of part of it too.
Kind of look at it like this: like you have $10 of advertising bucks a month, right? Now, I am a Magic player, so advertising for cool stuff only costs me one advertising buck because it goes hand in hand. My viewers actually are actively looking for that kind of information. The 5% helps them. Now, Raid Shadow Legends that nobody cares about is 5 advertising bucks. So I'm going to charge more because it's taking a larger portion of like my weekly like income, if that makes sense.
For sure. And I did something with like Into the AM, which makes clothing and stuff. And I was like, yeah, sure, it's kind of outside my space. It's going to be a little bit different. I have to make some specific intros for my videos and stuff to kind of help sell this a little bit more. So, yeah, that was a different thing that I probably would ask for from like, I don't know, one of my favorite game stores or something else that want me to promote something.
And I think a big part of it too is just like being true to your community. Like I am actively not taking sales gigs and things like that that are more predatory or taking advantage. I'm also not just like filling my time slots to the max. Like not every single thing is sponsored.
That's so true. Like
It's
I
very important.
even with the Into the AM thing, when we were going through that, like I hadn't actually worn their gear before. So I even told them, I was like, hey, how about I either order or y'all send me like 2 or 3 samples of things and I will wear them. And then if I feel good in them, great. Like, cause I was thinking like I'd feel really bad. Like
Yeah.
if I was promoting this thing and 3 or 4 of my viewers are like, man, I got these shirts and they like wore out after 2 washes or something, right? Like
Yeah.
then that pulls into question all the rest of your content. So I didn't want that. But they were totally good with it. We did it, and then we did stuff for a couple months, and it was cool.
Yeah, I'm always happy, like, if they want to send me a thing, I can, like, look at it, but I will always give a true opinion of it. With the exception of Twitch bounties, where it's, like, my chat knows if I'm not, like, actively excited, like, it's not great. But, so you can't, like, it says no unnecessary bad-mouthing is, in the contract. But for the
That's
most
fair.
part, yeah. And I'm not just like, oh, this sucks or whatever. I'm like, oh, I guess this is a thing. So like, try to be upfront and open with your community. Don't try to sell them stuff. And in my experience, they will support what you do. They'll hang out for Raid and download it and uninstall it so that way you can eat.
I also think there was a point in time where people kind of were bothered by creators doing like, oh, this person's selling out, now they're selling this thing or whatever. Now there's a little bit more of like community saying like, oh man, congratulations for getting that deal. Like, go get paid, whatever. Like, I think people just understand this is how content works now. So it's not as offensive to your viewers or your followers as you would think it would be.
Yeah, like, especially when you're dealing with small to mid-sized streamers, like, you have to also keep in mind that, like, we literally, that's how we pay our bills. There are swingy months where, yeah, sometimes subs and bits will be enough, but that is not usually the case. So most of the time, I think the communities, you're 100% correct, Power Dragon, that they are very supportive, and they're just like, yeah, man, get that money when it comes to things like Raid. I keep using that as as an example because it's like one of the most sellouty type things.
I know, and I feel bad because I haven't got my Raid money yet. Everybody else has.
I've taken a few. I did 2 Twitch bounty raids, so it's like 1 hour through Twitch, and then I've done 2 like personal ones through like the third-party companies. I did one recently, and it was a really good deal, and I took it because my mom's dog went to the vet, and the Raid's Shadow Legend sponsor almost covered the entirety of the vet bills.
Oh,
so I was like,
that's awesome.
I was like, hey man, if we can get 60 downloads, it pays for my dog's vet bills, and we did. It was so sweet.
So,
I have a question for you too.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So this is something that on the flip side, I know Nerdgirl, when you were creating Degens, you're like, we have so many sponsor like slots because you don't want too many. When is it not, or when is it like you stop, like you might have too many sponsors? I say this because I have a friend who streams that when I go into his stream, it looks like an infomercial with like things flashing and like 50 million different sponsors on his page.
Like a NASCAR.
Yeah. So it's like, when is too much?
Have you guys seen, so I think I've read the book as well, but have you guys seen the movie Ready Player One, where they're talking about, we've done research where we can fill 85% of the screen with advertisements before people go into seizures. And like they're trying to win control of the game so that way they can then jam it full of advertisement. Anyway, yeah, so I think that there is some sort of fatigue for your viewers, where then if you're just like covering the stream with ads and you're constantly running an ad out of your mouth, don't forget to blah 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 blah, then they're gonna just tune out, and I think that that's going to hurt you and your overall viewer base. Now, I'm sure there's like some sort of like, I don't know what's the term of it in business where it's like how much can I charge versus how many sales, and what's that sweet spot to maximize, right? What is that called? Anybody know?
No, I don't know the official term.
But whatever, you know what I mean. So yeah, that is just something that you're going to have to think of with your community. I think that the ad wheels and things like that, where you're keeping it a little bit more streamlined. We have 3 ads on the wheel, and they kind of cycle. I kind of like doing quick little chunks where I'm not trying to fatigue out my viewers.
That makes sense. I mean, for me personally, I just look and see is like, when does it start interfering with the content, right? Does it make the pacing really weird? Is it distracting from things? Is it taking up too much on the screen? Like, that's sort of what I look at. As long as it's not interfering with stuff, and, maybe if I'm taking a break, maybe run a commercial during the break or something or whatever. But for me, as long as it's not interfering either with the end product or with my process, because I think Nerd Girl touched on it earlier. Like, if you just don't have time to do enough for the quality commercials or ads or whatever it is you need to do, like at some point, the quality of everything's going to get brought down, and people are going to see that too.
Definitely. I think that's 100% true. And keep in mind, guys, that like you could sign up for 100 sales kickback deals. You can do DX Racer, you could do G Fuel, you could do literally all of them, and you're going to make $1 off of each one a month or whatever. But like the wider you go with those things, I feel like the less people are going to care, the more advertising you're going to have to do. And it just becomes, there's definitely a huge like diminishing returns for sure. So I would say pick the brands that you truly like and enjoy and can recommend with like a clean conscience, and then your viewers will like and respect that more and want to support you so you can continue doing the actual content.
Yeah, that's very true. I couldn't see myself doing more than maybe a handful of affiliate deals at one time, just because like if I'm not focusing on any one of them or promoting any one of them heavily, like I'm not going to make any real money off of a single one of them, right? And just like you're saying, you can make $1 off of 100 of them, or you can make, I don't know, $20 each off of 5 of them, right? Like,
Yeah.
like it's just easier to put your effort into a smaller amount of things. And you're also not telling your viewers like, oh, don't forget, support this thing, and then go here and buy this shirt and drink this thing and go by Amazon and pick up this item. And, like, then you're just like reading a script every single stream.
Yeah. And it gets really fatiguing and nobody's going to give a shit anymore. And also, like, I don't know, for me, that's just not how I like to produce content. And that's another thing too, is that smaller mid-sized creators are more community funded than we are sponsored funded. Now, so if you guys are getting a lot of sponsor talk, don't think that like myself and Power Dragon are just rolling in sponsor money, because that's just not the case. A lot of things are pretty small. The bulk of our income is typically still, ads, or not ads, subs and bits and things. So
and some of your deals are short-term deals. Like in the chat, somebody just said like, just sponsor Manscaped or Raid and everybody will hate you, right? But I actually did have a Manscaped thing over the leading up to the holidays with our podcast. We did like a month and a half worth of ads and stuff for them, and it was fine. Took care of us. We got some cool free stuff and whatever is great. And then that was it. We probably won't do anything with them for a little while now. They'll probably come back to us at some point. We'll do another short-term thing, and that's it.
I'm the same. Like I said, I've done 4 Raid Shadow Legends sponsorships, and my viewers know, like, hey, this pays X amount of what she needs to keep this fancy stream light on. And they're very welcoming of that, because we do not take advantage of our viewer bases. And I think that is a trap that you can fall into very, very easily. Especially as a mid-sized creator where, the bigger creators, they can do whatever they want because the viewers are not actually funding anything. If you go watch Ninja or whoever, the sub ratio is lower because they're mostly just putting them on in the background, things like that. Larger creators are more business-funded sponsors and ad revenue versus smaller mid-tier streamers like myself, it's mostly community funding. So if you try to dip too hard into selling a bunch of stuff, you're going to get less community funding, which I think will actually hurt you in the long run. All right, so it's been about 35 minutes. The last thing, Jaffer, did you have any other specific questions about these before we get into how to market yourself?
Not about the sponsorship wise. I actually, if we're switching topics, I actually had uh, a different topic question.
Let's go.
So when it comes to yourself as a creator, and I've gotten numerous requests now for to do. I play Magic the Gathering Arena, Magic the Gathering Online, and I've gotten requests for doing deck donations.
Mhm.
So how would you go about like monetizing some things like that, some things like that, or similar things?
So this is an interesting topic. It's sub decks or donation decks are one of the like more unique to Magic or card game things, where I don't think card games have as many tools to monetize themselves as other communities. So we've kind of compensated with that for things like deck techs and deck submissions. So you could do this, I think, in one of two ways. You could just say, hey, donate, your deck goes onto the list. I've seen creators do like, $20 for a deck, $30 it goes to the front of the line, which is interesting. I'm not a huge fan of that. You can also use hand in hand with your Patreon. I think that that's a really clean way of doing it. So you could say at $20 you get a monthly sub deck, and we could do sub decks every Wednesday. I myself use free channel points to do decks, just because I'm playing Magic anyway. I'd rather give people the content for free, and if they like the content, then I feel like if they can and want to, they will then support anyway, which is just kind of my personal motto. And I don't want anybody, I feel like if anybody's going to donate $20 to have me play their deck, if I just play their deck, they're probably going to gift 4 subs anyway, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. Like, and I think it works better for, I guess, higher profile players, probably. Like, I still feel like
That's
I'm not
true.
at the level that I would feel good necessarily doing that. So, in a lot of ways, I also do the same things as far as, I have channel points that we can either do a deck doctor to help fix your deck, or you can donate and I'll play your deck. And occasionally I'll tell somebody, especially if they're new to the channel and haven't had a chance to build up points, I'll be like, donate 100 bits, I'll do it. Right? Just like, cool, give me $1, I'll go do it. Right. And they're usually okay with that. But I also have a thing on my YouTube channel where if you're, I guess, a $4.99 member, which is like my highest level over there, like I can feature your deck in a video, right? I can play it, do a thing, whatever. So you can kind of introduce it for what makes sense to you. But for me, I wouldn't. For me, I just don't think I'm big enough or important enough that it makes sense for me to charge anything over than a dollar or two to feature somebody's deck. It just doesn't. And it's a personal thing. I'm not faulting anybody else who does it, because like if your community is gladly paying for it and wants to, then go for it, right? I don't have a problem with you getting your money. Just for me personally, I don't think I'm of the status that that I would personally feel good about it.
Honestly, I've had people ask me for coaching as well, and it's not like I'm a decent player. I've cashed some GPs. I've top 8'd an invitational, but I'm nothing truly special. So I feel really weird doing it. So I've attached it to my Patreon. If you're a certain Patreon tier, then once to twice a month or so, we can jump on a private call and do some coaching for an hour. And we either I backseat draft with you, or we do whatever. So that's kind of how I've decided to do that. And, some people just claim it for generic Magic talking about hey, what do you think of alchemy and how does this affect blah, blah, blah. And that's been helpful. So I think it really depends on you and how you want to monetize. What you could do too is you could do a special chat room in your personal Discord where patrons can post decks, and you could do a deck doctor. I think that's really cool. You could do a weekly thing where you pull up a deck, doctor it up for 20 minutes, and then do the next one. You can post that on YouTube. So everybody who's on the Patreon list can deck doctor once a week. That might be a really cool tool if you're more into the constructed side of things.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I think it also comes down to sort of how you present yourself, right? You do a lot of limited content. You do a lot of drafting. So if they don't watch a lot of other content creators that do a lot of drafting or don't seem well versed in it, you might be the most high profile person they have. So they want to pay for that service. I indirectly, especially when I was starting, because I've only really been doing content heavily for 2 years. And for the first few months, I kind of talked a lot about all these things I was learning and these things I was picking up and whatever. And so I had people going hey, do you do consultations for like content creation? And I was like, oh, I guess I can now, right? So
Yeah.
like it sort of became a thing. So a lot of it's about your brand too, and kind of what people are comfortable with or what they know you for. Sometimes they'll pay for it.
All right, so here's another quick question. And again, I do want to jump into the like how to market yourself, because I think that is the most important part as far as like becoming a, going from small creator, 100% community funded to sponsors and things, which is kind of how you should be trying to shift forward. But this question really quick is pretty good. What is a reasonable expectation for overall monthly income for a mid-size creator, assuming things go well? Now, this question is really dependent upon you. I have friends who are small creators who have other jobs that are, 6 figures, and they're like, yeah, I don't care. I just want to stream. I want my stream to grow. I want to make content. I find it fun and enjoyable. That is good. That's great. I myself have a pretty drastic in the deep end story as far as like I graduated from college. I'm like, okay, I'm going to try content creation. If I can't eat in 6 months when my student loans are due, I will stop and then go get a normal job, whatever the case may be. So for me, that was based on what I needed to eat. And living in California, that's drastically different than someone maybe in Montana. So there is no dollar amount that I can tell you, because you could probably live and be happy doing content in Montana for much cheaper than you could do in California. So I would say that that is very based on your personal preference and what you have going on in your life. If you're independently wealthy, then $0 is great if you're enjoying what you do. For creators like myself, where we do need to actually keep the lights on, I oftentimes will play games I don't want to play. Sometimes Magic sucks. I don't like the format, but I have to play it because that's my bread and butter. So, you have to have a realistic goal of what it is that you need to survive and do the content that you want to do, and you find the happy medium. I'm like, hey, we're having a good month. Hey, this Magic format sucks. I'm going to play some Pokemon. Like, even if I don't get paid and I take the day off just playing Pokemon, it makes me happy. I don't get mad at people. And then that's what we do. But sometimes it's like, oh, last month was really bad. I better play extra Magic. Power, was that your experience as well?
What's funny is my start was almost exactly the same. I just got released from another job, and I was like, okay, I just started like my podcast, and I think I'd done like a couple of months maybe at that point of Twitch streaming, and just decided, okay, I'm going to do this for 9 months or so. And if I can pay at least 75% of my bills just from the content, then I'll keep doing it.
That's
If not,
exactly what I did. Yeah.
I'll move on to something else. Right. So it was very, very similar. But what I want to say to the person who asked this question is, don't compare your success or failure or expectation to some imaginary number, because every one of our numbers is going to be drastically different, right? Depending on, do we have multiple incomes in our household? Are we the breadwinner potentially, right? Like that changes things.
Do
How
you
much
live with
time
your
do you have to
parents?
dedicate to it? Yeah, like for me, it's like I have different multiple things because I'm streaming, I'm doing YouTube, and I have a podcast. So like my numbers are going to be different than your numbers. And as long as you set the goal for what you need it to be, and you can make that number or close to it, or like we said, in each of our cases, we set a target number, and this means we can or can't do this, right? That sets your level of drive, time, whatever. And that's really what you should be looking at, is like what works for your budget and your return on time or investment that you're putting in, not some other number, because multiple people, even of the same size, can be making vastly different amounts of money. Everything from the games you stream, the communities that you interact with. Are you also doing competitive gaming that has prizes or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
Hell, even on the different platforms, that the ads that get fed to your content have a different dollar amount fit to them, and that's based on a bunch of different things. So you can't even just say, based on size, how much should you be making?
That's definitely true. This is a really good question here from Yoshi, one of our Degen streamers. It says, how do you balance asking your community for funding for yourself versus stream donations for charity? Do you worry you might be asking too much of your community? Absolutely. When I do a charity stream, I kind of assume that I will then not be making any money for this foreseeable chunk, right? Because you figure your viewers have X dollars of disposable money, and a certain amount of that they like to support their favorite content creators. Now, when I come on and say, hey, we're doing Extra Life for the next week, they are going to support me by working with me on the thing that I am trying to promote and do. So then that money goes to Extra Life. It does not go to me. For example, I just did a really big push for Extra Life, and I think my month in general was like, let's say 25% of what it normally is. I don't think I was in the black for the month because of that. Now, to be fair, I raised way more money than I would have made for myself because of Extra Life, and we did a really good thing. So at that point, I feel like we're almost donating our time to the charity. And that balance is going to be different for everybody based on your personal income. Like if you make, $500,000 on your other job, then you could do 100% charity and be very happy and just take your time as a donation itself. So basically for the month of November, I basically just said, okay, I have a little savings, the last month was good or whatever. I am now working for this charity, not for myself. And that's been kind of my experience with charity events. Power?
I've only done a handful of charity things, but I'm kind of the same way. I don't look at them monetarily at all. I just decide like that amount of time is just going to the charity, right? Whatever it is I'm doing. And sometimes that's been me going to events and actually doing commentary or whatever and just not taking a paycheck, right? They may have paid for hotel or flown me out or something, but I just assume that's time and stuff I'm just giving to that charity. Matter of fact, usually when I'm doing charity stuff, I've already prepped other content to still go out and be making money while I'm doing the charity stuff.
Yeah, if you're on YouTube or podcasting, that's a nice tool that you have where you can continue to produce the same content. It doesn't actually affect your monetary stuff at all. But when you're live streaming for the charity, it's way different. You can't really keep that sort of thing. So let's say every day I get roughly 5 to 10 gifted subs on average. Someday it's none, someday it's 50, it just depends. But if I do a charity stream, nobody's gifting subs, they are donating to the channel, or to the charity, whatever the case may be. And that is where you just need to make sure that you have a healthy balance there to where you can keep your stream lights on while also doing a good thing that you want to do. And I think that's why some creators don't do any charity events. And I do think that there are some that probably do too many and put themselves in more of a financial hardship because of it.
Yeah, and that's a tough thing too, because you do want to build the community and you want to show your altruism and everything, but at some point it's like if you're also focusing on growth, you kind of have to find the balance. Like it is good to do nice things, but you can't just keep only doing nice things and never give yourself a chance to build. One of the things I try to tell people even in day-to-day life is you have to take care of yourself before you can take care of other people. Like there is a point where you have to be good if you're going to keep doing this. Up, there will be also opportunity to do bigger, better things to help people as well.
All right, Jaffer, anything specific?
Not that I can think of at the moment.
Okay, and you can always touch base with me personally too if there are more unique situations to yourself. All right, so I do want to go ahead and move on here for the last little bit, guys. And this is one of the most important things I think of when working with sponsors and things is, one thing we talked about is that you can't really find a good way to market yourself as far as what's my cost. But next to that is also working hard for your sponsors. A lot of people will just throw up whatever and don't say anything about it. They play the game and they're not very enthusiastic. We are entertainers. We have a job to do when we are taking sponsors, but also sponsors like to see that you are taking it seriously. You're not just if you give me $500, I'll do a thing. I'll do it. And that's not a good way to market yourself or get any sort of deal. So I actually have a little Google Doc where I keep, my some of my YouTube information. And then below that, I have some sponsor information. And I kind of wanted to just go over it a little bit and tell you that this is a rough outline. I obviously go back, edit, and tweak it based on the sponsor itself and add more relevant information, remove non-relevant information, things like that. But when they say, hey, we like your YouTube channel, what do you charge? What kind of services do you offer? That is a question I get quite often. So I say, hey, I offer different options to sponsors. And I'm very flexible on your needs. We can mix and match any number of platforms that are listed below. For each platform, I always attempt to host sponsors during peak content hours and carefully craft any announcements or posts to maximize engagement. Things like this is just like chef's kiss to a sponsor. You definitely want to show them that you are taking this seriously and their money is going to be well spent, right? You're not going to like dumpster their content buried at the beginning of a stream where nobody's paying attention. I can do this as a one-time or a month-long campaign. And then I do, Twitter, 22K followers, Twitch, blah, 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 YouTube. And then also like in parentheses with the YouTube channel, I say we can discuss the types of videos you would be interested in being involved in. Some do better than others based on the type of content that is for my viewers. So if you're on like an informational economy video, those are going to get much better traction. So I will charge a different amount for that, of course. And then I go on to like say, hey, if you have a price point or preference, if you can give me an outline of the types of platforms you're looking for, we can lay out a plan that's specific to your needs that will help me maximize reach, basically. This is the kind of thing that you want to be doing with your sponsors. You don't want to just be like, yeah, I mean, whatever, $500. Power?
Yeah, I think a lot of what you're saying is kind of fits well with my perspective of how I've landed my deals. When I've had like, to be honest, I didn't have much in the beginning. I assumed a bunch of people were just going to say no, but kind of like I was touching on earlier, so often they were just saying like, oh, well, normally we don't get this level of information from people, right? You get a bunch of people that basically say like, hey, I like your stuff. Would you give me money to promote it? And that's kind of it. And the best thing you can do is let them know what they are getting for their money.
Definitely.
Like, what are you going to do as far as integrating it, or how are you going to show it? How are you going to talk about it? Are you doing intros to stuff? Are you doing it on commercial breaks? Like, do they have a certain type of product that you can integrate into your stuff? Is it going to be used on camera? Is it something you're doing, I don't know, you're sitting tweets over on Twitter once a week about it or whatever it is. And each one has a different requirement. Like my thing with Manscaped was we had to make sure we spoke about it on the podcast, and they even had some certain terms they wanted mentioned, certain things you couldn't say or whatever. It's like, cool, we can work with that. And we could be as silly as we wanted with it, right? I have done stuff with Ultra Pro where, reaching out to them, I was like, hey, can we do some silly stuff? Can we do something a little different? And we're like, yeah, that's totally what we're looking for, right? So each person knew, or each company knew what they were getting from me, even more so than just like the amount of money they were paying me or whatever. It's what is this going toward? How is this going to be promoted? What is your reach? And if you have that information on hand to hand to people, they love it, because then they don't have to go scour all your social media and do all the math on their numbers and try to figure out what your view count is and whatever. Like, you make it nice and easy for them. Like, I guess we could talk about media kits a little bit though, but like putting something together that has, even if you're just basic numbers, saves them so much time and puts you that much closer to closing a deal.
Definitely. Media kits are helpful. Sometimes people post them on Twitter or whatever, and they don't really see any traction. And that's okay. I think having the media kit laid out, even just in text, so you kind of have it at a glance. And again, I will then go back and tweak it based on a specific sponsor's needs. If I think like, oh, these people are X, so I will focus in on Instagram or whatever, and make it appealing for them. Let them know what they're getting. I think that's a really important part there. And let them know that, like I said, I plan my sponsorships. I'm like, okay, I need to stream 3 hours of Magic and then do the thing, because that's what sponsors want to see. And this is actually a requirement I have of any of my Degens who take personal sponsorships. That's not something that the team, the sponsor requires. That is something that I pitch to the sponsors to get my streamers deals. And then that is a requirement I have on them to make sure that we are providing a good service, because that's how we keep food on the table. All right, so I think that that's going to be the tail end of it, guys. If this is something you guys are interested in more of, you guys can jump into the Degen Discord. We also have another video that we posted a month or two back where we talked more about general things as far as taxes, equipment, stuff like that. And if this is something you guys would like to see more of and have these chats more often, you guys are always welcome to jump into the Discord and suggest them. I'm happy to host them as much as you guys would like. We will definitely be posting this on the YouTube channel on the Degen if you missed it. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. For those of you guys who came on, I do appreciate it. I have the sweatsuit invitational, so I have to dip, unfortunately. But thank you all so very, very much for being here. And I hope this helped. And feel free to poke me or the Degen Discord with questions if you have any other ones. Bye, guys. Okay, so let's get back here. I'm done recording, right? Oh.